Good evening, world. Welcome to another tour around our celestial neighborhood. Tonight, we're strolling around Mars again because it's a Marsy Mars kind of month. I'm Irene Pease, your friendly neighborhood astronomer, coming to you from not Mars. But it feels like it. I feel like I've been doing an awful lot of Mars lately because there's been an awful lot happening with Mars. So tonight we're going to be checking out the most recent missions. It's officially a mission of the month um, for our tours here. And there were three that are happening now that just arrived at Mars, one of them today. So people have probably heard all about that. I'm going to recap a little bit, but I'm going to try. I was thinking about how I wanted to, put a little different spin. Um, so yeah, we'll get into a little bit of the diversity and collaboration, I guess, is kind of how I'm trying to attack this. So we'll take a look at that in a bit. We'll start off with some Stellarium. You can download Stellarium at stellarium.org. We're going to use that to check out our night skies, see where Mars is in the night sky. Then we'll pop back over to here to Open Space. That's what you're seeing in the background right now. You can download that for free at openspaceproject.com. So let's go ahead and pop over to our night skies. Stellarium. Hey, Stellarium. So you notice we're not in the mountains of Brooklyn. We're off in the wilderness forest marsh of Brooklyn. But this is now, but maybe not Brooklyn. I think it's still snowing out there or what. But if there were no clouds, if it's clear where you are this evening, you might see something like this, minus the labels in the sky. If you see those, there's something wrong. But yeah, the big bright things up in the sky: Mars, the moon, and of course, we'll have a constellation to check out as usual. Get us all caught up on the winter constellations. So, starting off with Orion, like we do, someone else was describing, kind of like there's three reddish things in the night sky and like a little arc right now. So, we have the reddish orangish star Betelgeuse, the armpit of the giant. And then, if we follow the belt of Orion over towards the west, we get to this V-shape cluster of stars. That's the Hyades. That's the face of Taurus, the bull. So a little group of stars in there. And Aldebaran, kind of in the same line of sight as those stars, but it's kind of another orangish, reddish star. So Betelgeuse and Aldebaran, and then past that, further to the west, is Mars. So this is actually really high in the night sky. Go out, look up. And tonight you can cheat and use the moon if you can see it. Tomorrow the moon will be a little further along, right? So it'll be over closer to Aldebaran. So moving eastward like it does from one night to the next. But for tonight, it's near Mars. And so I wanted to, well, it appears near Mars in our sky. It's nowhere near Mars. Mars is pretty far away yet. But I wanted to focus on that constellation that holds Mars and the moon and Uranus for tonight anyway. Mars and Uranus for a little while yet. But that constellation is Aries, and I don't think we've talked about that one yet. It's not really easy to find, but yeah, if you use that kind of string of little red berries, I guess, so Betelgeuse, Aldebaran, Mars, and just keep falling over that way. These are the two brighter stars of Aries. So I put up these constellation boundary markers. So really Aries is technically everything in here. So all the stars in here are in Aries. But these are the two brightest stars, kind of the head of the ram. So if you need some help with your imagination, there's some help from Stellarium. That's what a ram might look like in the sky, apparently. But yeah, but it's along the ecliptic, so we see other bodies of the solar system, Mars, Moon, Uranus, pass through there. So that's going to be your challenge for the week. Try to find Aries in the night sky if you can. And I see Brian was here. Brian was the one he used this. He was doing some outreach for for the kiddies at the local libraries here in Brooklyn, which is fabulous. And so he was telling me that he was describing that as those three red things in the sky. So thanks, Brian, for letting me steal that. um, so yeah, so looking for Aries. So you can find Aries the ram, which is also kind of Marsy, and Mars is in Aries, and etc. etc. So I didn't want to spend too much other time looking at our night sky. We'll be moving along and seeing more next week when there's less moon. The moon is kind of, out there right now. Um, but we'll be back for more night sky next week. Let's pop on over back to open space so we can get, out in space. See our our Mars, one of the rubies in Brian's string of rubies. So yeah, so Mars. So I don't know, I guess stuff has been happening around Mars lately. Not one, not two, but three different missions arrived at Mars, and not a coincidence that they all arrived at the same time. Whoa. Um, we had them all launch at the same time, about 6-ish months ago. So back in July of 2020, all three missions launched, and they have all arrived in the same order in which they launched. So when Mars is at a certain location relative to Earth in their orbits, that's when it's basically the best time to send stuff to Mars. So if we just kind of move out and take a quick look at where that is, and we might actually visit Earth just briefly tonight because we can. Um, so we can see Mars in its orbit. You can see that red line in there, and Earth in its orbit. Since Earth is inside of the orbit of Mars, it's closer to the sun than Mars is. It travels a little bit faster, and so we pass Mars in its orbit every now and then. So if we ran back time, so I can just kind of set time back a few months. Still kind of focused on Mars here. That's okay. Right? Um, maybe that was too many months. That was too many months. um, sorry, we'll fast forward a bit. Try that again. So back just a few months. And maybe just go ahead and focus on the sun so we can kind of recenter that. So if we watch the planets moving around, just kind of play through time a little more slowly, basically this is about the time that we would have been launching. So just a few days per second. So we launched, here. So this is July. So our robots were leaving, and you don't just aim towards Mars, you have to aim towards where Mars is going to be. So they went on these trajectories that left the Earth, slowed down a bit as they got out closer and closer to Mars because Mars is traveling slower than the Earth is. But then by the time they get there, they're still going really fast. So it's not just a matter of aiming at Mars or aiming at where Mars is going to be. You also have to slow down and actually allow yourself to be captured by Mars's gravity as opposed to just whizzing right past it and, going out into, whatever is out past Mars these days. I don't know, some planets or something. Okay. So we don't want to go there. We want to get to Mars. So the first to arrive was the Hope orbiter from the UAE, which was super exciting for a couple reasons. Namely, it was another country. It was an addition to the countries that have things in orbit around Mars, and let's just go back to Mars for a bit. So they're first, and it's just an orbiter. Not landing, not going to rove, but just kind of being very, very successful on their first try, which not a lot of countries have been able to do. Be super successful on their first try at Mars. So There was some collaborations with other countries there, which was really great. Um, I think the ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, helped, and they launched out of Japan, and um, had some Japanese assistance with launching. So it was kind of a collaboration, which is a really beautiful thing. Um, Basically, my kind of fun fact for the evening is that the orbits and surface of Mars is kind of more diverse than the International Space Station is right now. So if you look at the number of countries that are currently represented on the International Space Station, it's not nearly as many as we have um, robots orbiting around Mars. And even if you look at all the countries that have been represented on the International Space Station, that's about on the order of all the things that have ever visited Mars. Actually, there's more things that have visited Mars from like more countries. So that's kind of amazing that Mars is not really international because it's not even on the planet anymore. But yeah, it's it's getting more diverse. So more countries, more agencies, more groups sending stuff to Mars, which is just, the more the merrier, right? So, what is the UAE's probe doing? It's mainly studying the atmosphere. So, everything about the atmosphere you could possibly want. And so, looking at the interactions. So, yeah, basically looking at all different wavelengths. So, it has some cameras, it has an imager. XE is the imager, the Emirates Exploration Imager. Um, it has. Um, it has two spectrometers, EMERS, the Emirates Mars Infrared Spectrometer, and EMUS, the Emirates Mars Ultraviolet Spectrometer. So a UV and an IR. And I just kind of fell in love with those acronyms, EMERS and EMUS. So they have three really brilliant instruments, and a pretty far out orbit. So the orbit takes almost 2 days. I think this is one that takes almost 2 days. Um, yeah, and it's around 20,000 kilometers out. So it's at about this altitude. This is the closest it gets to Mars, and then it gets about twice this distance from Mars. So it gets much further. But the whole point is to have kind of a global view. So it's not in a polar orbit like most of the other orbiters are. It's only inclined about 25 degrees. So it's, a little bit more equatorial. Um, and so getting, just global views of that. So pretty impressive, very excited for UAE and its endeavors. So hope. We have hope at Mars. We all need a little bit of hope. So that was last Tuesday. Last Thursday. Wow, that was like a week ago. Feels like a year. That's how the days are now. Tianwen-1, the first Chinese mission to Mars, arrived, and that's an orbiter which is going to be moving into a highly eccentric orbit. So that's going to be even further out than Hope was at its furthest point, and much closer in. We're actually going to come in, and I think. Yeah, I'm going to spin back here and look at some of the potential landing sites. So it will be sending down a lander rover, but not till May. So they're still doing, some recon imaging and kind of narrowing down the landing sites. And I need to shift time a little bit on Mars so we can light up our other landing site. So one of the landing sites is kind of off to the east um, of the Valles Marineris. So let's just kind of, if we light this up, I always forget which way I need to go. One of these days I'll figure out time. I'll become like a time lord, but not today. No time lording today. Someday. Right. So we go back in time. Right. There's that big gash across the planet, Valles Marineris. And kind of off to the northeast is a Chrysi Planitia. So up in here, This kind of smoother region. Smoother regions are a little bit safer for landing on, just because, boulders are bad. Smooth is safe. And I wanted to turn on a different layer here. See if I can guess which one it is. Probably not. We'll try. Yeah. So we have all these beautiful elevation maps. So this is an elevation map coming in from MOLA, one of our orbiters. And just from looking at this map, you kind of get the sense of, oh yeah, there used to be a big northern ocean. So, one of the main things that we're looking for on Mars is one, was there life in the past? And two, um, is there, what are the chances of supporting like humans who want to go there and explore in person instead of sending robots? Um, so looking for evidence of past life, good place to do that is where there used to be a moving water. So kind of all up in this region, you can almost imagine like rivers, you can see like ancient river channels pouring out into what would have been the Northern Ocean. So looking around in that region, that's one area that they were considering landing. Um, and the other is actually over by where we have a few other landers at the moment. And I think I need to spin through a little bit more time to bring that up. So we'll do a little bit more time travel. See how well that works for us. Different time travel. Never gonna make it to be a Time Lord. There we go. So kind of on the other side of the planet, again, we're looking out into the kind of the Northern Ocean over here. So we have Isidis Planitia and part of Utopia Planitia. That's, Elysium Planitia. So that's Elysium Mons, which when I was first trying to learn my way around Mars, kept confusing it with Olympus Mons, but that's not Olympus, that's Elysium. So Elysium Planitia, and then this kind of little inlet, what may have been an ancient inlet. So again, blue doesn't mean water here. Blue just means elevation. But you can see just kind of the smoother bits and the lower elevation, that's where water would have accumulated. So if you had an ocean, which we're pretty sure there was, that's where it would have been. So that's kind of one of the potential landing sites for Tianwen 1. And that should be really exciting. So it's going to have the orbiter still, and then the lander kind of doing similar things. So one on the ground and one in the skies, looking at the magnetic field. So the magnetic field on the ground, see if that's coming from rocks or what. And then also measuring the magnetic field from up above the atmosphere, seeing how one of the big things that a lot of the orbiters are looking at again is how the solar wind interacts with Mars's atmosphere, and also seeing if like what the magnetic field might have to do with that. So that's important. And then also looking at the ground, it has like some ground penetrating radar, similar to what it did on the moon. So China just had some really successful moon landings, and so we can kind of see some of the technology being adapted for now their landings on Mars. So kind of using the moon as a stepstone, which is kind of what a lot of other people are saying we should do with uh, with human travel as well. So the one of the um, one of the bits of instrumentation, my favorite, I guess my favorite acronym that I found. So I'm doing acronyms and countries today. So the acronym was the Mars Orbiter Subsurface Investigation Radar. So that's basically looking for subsurface water, both liquid and ice water. So that's Moser, which I thought just had kind of a cute name. But of course, then today, so that'll be landing in May. We'll get more information before then, I'm assuming. Um, but today we had a landing just a few hours ago. So I won't take you through too much of that, but we will go in and check out the site. If I switch my maps up again. So Perseverance survived the 7 minutes of terror. All the engineers survived the 7 minutes of terror. I'm assuming a lot of folks were tuning into that live. Um, it was impressive to say the least. Um, but yeah, so now we have Perseverance safely on the ground and basically hit its target, which again was in Jezero Crater, which is basically an ancient river delta. Um, just really gorgeous, gorgeous formations. Like nothing screams river delta like these formations at Jezero Crater, in my humble opinion. Right. So I think we may have visited this a little while back, but I just wanted to kind of pinpoint um, and take a closer look at where the rover is now, what it's doing next, and I'm hoping. So again, we're getting into these high rise images. So this is our 25 centimeter resolution data from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. Yay, MRO. But I'm hoping that over the coming weeks, we'll actually get, updated maps in here. So we'll be able to pick out possibly the rover, but also all the stuff that it throws off, right? So it has specifically the jetpack and the parachute. So those should be somewhere in this region as well. So you have the main river delta kind of up into the left here. And then these kind of craters were in part of like the target zone, which was, I don't know, one of the circles I saw showed the actual landing site a little off center. So we're actually right here. Um, so if you kind of come in here, you can see in the kind of follow-up interview press session, one of the engineers was talking about how we have this kind of dune field between the rover, where it is right now, and the delta. So it's like, all right, how are we going to get over there? So here we are at, I don't have the actual altitude here because this is measuring relative to the mean, the planetary mean. But we can kind of see, yeah, beautiful dune field. So the rover should be right in here. So hopefully we'll get images of that from space in the next few days as MRO comes around again. But then if you look off kind of to the northwest, the river delta is up in there. So that's a target. The dunes might be a little bit treacherous, but there are some minerals because we have mineral maps. So there are some minerals. They were saying it's basically parked between a major flora unit and an olivine bearing unit. So I'm not sure what the major flora is supposed to be, but olivine is, one of those silicate minerals. So all the mineralogists are, I guess wanting to check that out. So it'll be a little while before it can, do its caching and whatnot. Test out the helicopter. So there's a helicopter in there, Ingenuity, which is super exciting. So I have to select a site for it to do some test flights. But I wanted to go ahead and move out, take a little bit of closer look at the rover. So beautiful landing site. We're seeing a lot more of that. Probably be visiting that every month until September, or maybe we'll just wait till September. Why September? Well, find out in a minute. Yeah, so let's move away from Mars and actually visit our rover model. We have a rover model in here. Just going to fly over to that. Uh-oh. Hoping that this takes me to my rover model. And yes, okay. So rover model. So I don't have my rover model on Mars. I'm working on it. But this is basically a lot like Curiosity, but it has a couple other bits to it. Um, some fun acronyms, obviously. From Astronomy on Tap, one of the things I learned last night is that ingenuity is actually tucked to the belly. So it's kind of riding around, I don't know, possum style or whatever critter rides on, its mama's belly instead of the back. Um, but so that's kind of got a little cover over it. So it's gonna kind of just piggyback or tummy, tummy back, whatever, for a little while there, while the rest of the rover kind of unfolds and does all its checks and gets to a safe spot to unload the the helicopter that we have on Mars, because there's a helicopter on Mars. It's still kind of mind-boggling. So some of my favorite acronyms for this one, MOXIE is pretty awesome because MOXIE just sounds really fun, but it actually is the Mars Oxygen in Situ Resource Utilization Experiment, which is a mouthful, but basically proof of concept of taking carbon dioxide, of which Mars has gobs and gobs and gobs, it's mostly carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and turning that into O2. So really handy for, potentially having people there someday. So we're not trying to terraform it overnight. We're just like, can we, use what's there to sustain human life if we decide we want to send humans there, when we decide we want to send humans there. So MOXIE. So that's pretty exciting. The caching system is pretty exciting, and it has two cameras, well, many cameras, but two in particular. One is the scanning habitable environments with Raman luminescence of organics and chemicals, which, if you spell that out, that's Sherlock. So we have a Sherlock detecting camera and its little buddy right next door, the wide angle topographic sensor for operations in engineering. That would be WATSON, Watson. So, yeah, I don't know if that counts as like a British contribution. There's actually contributions from Spain, Italy, France, and Norway, and the different instrumentation here. So again, kind of an international collaboration as far as the instrumentation suite. And then I guess we'll just blame, the UK for the name Watson and Sherlock. So that's all I have to say about that. But yeah, so apparently we're looking at springtime flights, and maybe caching in the summer. And September is going to be a rest period. Why is September our rest period? What happens in September? I'm so glad you asked. Well, let's see if maybe I should aim back at the sun, bring us around, and see what the next 7 months hold for Earth and Mars. So we're able to communicate with Mars, with our rovers on Mars, even though they haven't fully deployed all of their telecommunications equipment, because of all the things flying around Mars, mainly the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, and then also MAVEN was assisting with communications today. So two of the lower altitude orbiters. And then back on Earth, we have the NASA Deep Space Network that has listening stations, listening out in 3 different directions. So there's a listening station in California, one in Australia, and one in Spain. So between the 3 of those, you basically get 360 coverage. So you can listen to anything, anywhere in the solar system at all times, unless there's something in the way. So if we kind of rove through time, here we go, trying to Time Lord again, wish me luck. Yeah. So as we rove through time here, again, remember we're traveling at different speeds. So sometimes we're closer to Mars, sometimes we're further from Mars. And so one, you have to think about like the signal, the time that it takes the signal to get back and forth. So it could be as little as about 4 minutes, as much as about 20 minutes. But really, when it's 20 minutes, that means that the Earth and Mars are basically on opposite sides of the sun. So the sun's in the way. So that's happening. Yeah, September. So this is what September is going to look like from space. So Earth over here, Sun, Mars. So when it's one, it's going to be really far away. So longer signal, that's not a big deal. Like we communicate with, the Voyagers still and New Horizons that are much more distant, but they don't have the sun in the way. So we're going to have to wait for Mars to not be directly behind the sun. So we'll get a little bit of a break there. So that's a lot to look forward to, a lot of exciting things that should be happening between now and September. So we'll have a helicopter taking flight. We'll maybe get to go play in the dunes a little bit or wander around them, get some more really cool pictures, start caching stuff, and the Chinese lander should land, and then that'll start radaring the ground and lasering things as well. It has a laser. Yeah, so we have multiple lasers on Mars. It's gonna be so great. So it's going to be a fun summer, and then we'll take a little break in the fall and come back for more in October. So a lot of Mars happening, not going anywhere. Not anytime soon anyway. So I'm sure I'll be back to talk more about this stuff in the coming months. But that's it for tonight. Thanks again for just joining in this little stroll around Mars. And if you get a chance, if it's clear, go look for Mars in the night sky. Wave to the robots. Congratulations. Welcome to the newest robots in the Martian skies on the Martian ground. I'm Irene Pease, your friendly neighborhood astronomer. I've been using visuals from Stellarium, which you can find at stellarium.org, and OpenSpace, which you can find at openspaceproject.com. Clear skies, everyone. Be safe out there. Don't forget to wear a mask.